Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our 19.7 to 19.8 webinar for Redstor Pro. And today we'll be talking about some of the new features in ESE. We'll be looking at the storage platform, some instant data, and then I'll end off with specific things about the control center that we've added. And we'll also take a brief look at the cloud-to-cloud software that was recently launched. So I'm going to jump straight into a demo, and in order to do that, I'm going to start with a browser. So all this information that I'm sharing in these webinars are all available on the website. And the easiest place or the easiest way to get to that is to go to our support portal, which you can see here, support.redstor.com, and you simply go to the release notes page. So if I click on this here, you'll see all the releases are listed down here with the latest one always right at the top. As soon as you click on this link, you will get a list of release notes with screenshots showing all the different features that we have recently added to the software. And in fact, when I prepare for these webinars, I literally go to these pages. So for this case, I went to 19.7 and 19.8. And I picked up some of the new features that I would like to demo in the webinar. And I used the not just the information here, but also the articles that are listed here. So for instance, if I want to look at instant data, the specific features in instant data, I can click on this article here, number 1224 in this case, and this is going to give me a detailed view of all the information that is related to this particular feature. Right, so the first, I will come back to these articles every once in a while. So the first feature I'd like to demo is this one here in ESE. So we've added a number of features here, and the first one is around scripts. So up to now, we've always had the ability to have a script before and at the end of a backup. Now, this particular feature has extended the capabilities of the backup scripts in terms of when you can execute this. And this is very useful if you say need to have or you have a particular database, let's say MongoDB, that you need to get in a specific state to prepare it for backup. Now, you don't want to do that right at the beginning of the backup, then do the whole backup, and then let's say you have to stop the backup service, for instance, the database service, for instance. You don't want to do that right at the beginning of the backup and then only start the service right when the backup is finished at the end of the backup. So this feature here allows you to stop this, for instance, stop the service right before the snapshot is created, create the snapshot, and then immediately start the service again afterwards, which means that the possible downtime of your database will be a few seconds as opposed to minutes or even hours for the database to be backed up. So this is useful when you have sort of non-standard databases, specifically not SQL or Oracle that we're protecting, but say MongoDB or other databases that you need to do specific things to protect it. So that's the first feature. The second one I would like to show you is I'm going to use an article for that, and it's specifically about how to always patch files. So this is again useful for databases like MongoDB, where the file in the database that is used by the database does not get updated. The last modified time does not get updated, even though the database is open all the time. And the problem with that is that as soon as you do a backup, the file is backed up. The next time you do a backup, it looks as if the file has not changed because the date timestamp hasn't changed and the size hasn't changed. Now, in that case, the file will not be processed for backups. Now, there's a particular feature that you can enable, which we've now added to ESE. It used to be an SE only, so now it's available in ESE to always patch certain files. And basically, you can go through the details. This is exactly how you do it. But basically, you have an option to add a setting called always.process paths, and you can specify a particular path in which the files must always be processed. Whether they appear to have changed or not, you can override that capability. So that's one way of doing it. You either specify the path, or you specify a wildcard. So for instance, you want to say all .mdb files must always be processed for backups. And it's, whenever one of those files are picked up in your selection, then they will always be processed. And that's very useful, again, when you have non-supported databases that you have to check for changes. Right, so those are the changes in ESE. The next one is on the storage platform, and this is specifically for access pools. So this here is one of is one of our live platforms, and so we have a lot of storage pools here. So a storage pool is basically a collection of storage servers, and you can delegate control of the storage pool to a particular user. So this feature is specifically useful for people with their own, or resellers with their own storage platforms, and you maybe have a sub-reseller or a customer that have their own storage servers. Now, up to now, we've had the storage pool capability for many months, but if you wanted to add a storage server to a pool, only the storage platform administrator could do that. So if you had a customer with his own storage servers and he wanted to add another one, he would have to contact the reseller. Now you can delegate access to the storage pool to that end customer, and he can then right click on the storage pool and he can add his own storage servers. He can even add mirror servers to that, and he can do all sorts of storage related tasks which otherwise you could not have done. The next feature I would like to highlight is on instant data. So for that one, I'm going to go to back to the release notes. All right, it's this one here. And it's specifically the 19.8 release notes. So if we scroll down a little bit, we'll see this section here on instant data. So the first one I want to show you, and I'm going to do this simply by using the support portal with the articles, is the recovery to Azure. So you can now, apart from just doing a full system recovery to a virtual machine that you have, or to a virtual disk that you have to attach to either VMware or Hyper-V, you can now restore to a virtual machine in Azure. So this is all covered. You'll see here, you can, as the target hypervisor, you can specify Azure, and all the details is in this particular article over here, how to do a full system recovery to Azure. So it tells you what you will need and how you go about to initiate the process. And what I would like to show you is this screen over here, where you have to specify your Azure login details, and then specifically you have to enter your subscription ID, the account name of the storage account name that you're using, the container, the network, the subnet, and so forth. These are all Azure specific things that you must specify. And once you've done all of that, the recovery process will start. This will create a virtual machine directly in Azure. It doesn't restore it first to a local machine. It goes straight into Azure. And once that machine has been restored, then you can restart the machine and it will simply boot up. Right. What we've also done is we've added significantly more progress. So not only do you see when as the machine is being restored, but you also see the progress on the virtual machine creation, the setting up of the partitions, and then of course the whole data transfer until the point where you can restart the machine at the end of the recovery. Right. So another one. So this is the first one, is the recovery to Azure. The next one that we've added is this little feature down here, which is the ability to disable the backup service when you do a full system recovery. Now, you must remember that whenever you do a full system backup, you always back up the Redstor Pro agent as well, which means that when you restore that virtual machine, you restore the Redstor Pro agent too. And usually that agent is configured to do automatic backups. So now you've got your machine, you may do a test restore, and in your test machine, you now have a Redstor agent running, and that may start backing up to the same account, and this may create problems. So this feature down here allows you to do a full system recovery, but as you do the recovery, to disable the backup service, which means that target restored machine will not have an active backup agent, which means it will not override your backups. And this is good for test scenarios, for auditing scenarios where you where you have not lost your primary machine. You simply want to test your recovery or play with the full system recovery feature. Right, and I've already spoken about the progress. The last one is that you can that full system recovery will now fail over to the mirror server. Here you see this listed in the release notes. So if your storage server is offline, the connection to the storage server is not working for whatever reason, then FSR will automatically fail over to the mirror server and do the recovery from that machine. Right, so that's it for instant data. Let's move on to the control center. So to do that, I'm going to go to web.dev.redstor.com. Right, so this here is this is the development storage platform, and I'm going to open up the control center. Now, each of the storage platforms have their own control center URL, which is the control center that controls that particular platform. For the UK, the address is simply web.pro.redstor.com. That'll take you to the UK storage platform. So I'm going to go to the dev one, and I'm going to log in with my credentials. All right, so I supply my email address, and I've already logged in previously, so I don't have to go through the whole two-factor authentication, but if I hadn't, then I would have had to authenticate on my cell phone. Right, so I want to focus your attention on some of the cards that we've added for Insight. Now, as you know, you can monitor your backups easily through the control center, and you can get all sorts of statistics and success rates and things like that. So today I just want to focus on some of the Insight cards. Now, for those that are not familiar with Insight, Insight gives you the ability to get information on data, not just backed up data, but data across your entire estate. So the idea is that you deploy an agent. It's a Redstor Pro backup agent. You deploy it to all the devices on your network. You don't necessarily configure backups for those, but you do use that agent to gather all sorts of data, and that can help you to make sensible decisions. And then eventually, when you want to start using backups on those devices, then it's very easy to do so. So in this particular scenario, I have already deployed an agent to a whole lot of accounts. In fact, I'm going to go to the Redstor group here, which is this one. And so when I do that, all the data that I see for Insight here at the top is just specific to the Redstor group. So you'll see here I'm working in the Redstor group. So the first one I want to show you is this data protection one. We'll get to the other graphs just now. Right. So in case that was too quick, I clicked on this customize dashboard cards here, and when I do that, I can select which cards I want to see. Now, all the ones that I'm looking at now, they're all Insight cards, and I'm just going to talk briefly through them. So the first one is this orange one here. You'll see that we've simplified it quite significantly. And what we're showing you is the amount of servers that I have in my network which have been scanned. And that means we have done a scan across their disks, collected all sorts of information about the data on those disks and so forth. And I'll show that to you just now. So the first one is an interesting one, is the amount of capacity on all the volumes of all my devices. If I add all of them together, in this case, I get 85 terabytes. And then I can see how much data is actually on these volumes, and that is 25 terabytes. So that gives me a very good indication of the data in my estate. Then the next card here is the data protection card. So we can see of this 25 terabytes, which is that amount there, 15% of that is currently being backed up. So I've got the agent out there, and some of them have backups enabled. And also, of course, we know exactly how much data we're protecting on each agent. So we can work out exactly what the protection percentage is. And that's good to give you an idea of how much data is protected. Of course, without any backups, that would be 0. Then we can look at other cards like this one here, which is the storage optimization. Right. So storage optimization says how many cards, how many files do we have that can be archived? Now, it shows by default, it shows 3 months. I can take this down to a week or all the way down to 12 months. And what this card is telling me is that across my estate, so in other words, this whole 25 terabytes, 41% of the data has not been accessed in the last 12 months, which means that if I were to back up the data and I was to run archiving on that, I can save 41% of space, which is quite significant. So that's 10 terabytes of the 26 or 25 terabytes I can archive off to the storage platform. Right, and like I said, you can change this. If I make this 3 months, that'll be more. If it's just 1 week, it's going to be a significant percentage of data. Right, moving on to some other cards. Let's say you're now interested in which machines are the ones that have all this stale data. I can enable this extra card over here, and now I'm going to get a list of all the machines that have data, the biggest amount of data older than 12 months, or that haven't been accessed in 12 months. And then I can go into those machines and see exactly where is this data on which drives and so forth. So for the moment, this only shows the top 10, and we'll customize that later on. So just this is the first card that we've introduced, which shows a list of accounts, and so it's like a list view. We'll be happy to get some feedback from you guys in terms of what you would like to see here. So most of this stuff is sort of a work in progress, and we're just putting it out there so that you guys can play with it and get some information, and then feed that back to us. So there are 2 more cards that shows accounts in lists. So the one is the volumes there in capacity and the most common file extensions. So if we look at them, let's just take these out. Right. So the first one here is volumes nearing capacity. So this is simply a list of across my entire estate and showing me all the data volumes that are very close to being full, right? So I've got a few ones here. Maybe I should go and speak to this guy, Johan here, because his C drive is like almost 98% full. Or maybe I can run archiving on it, or I can do something about it. The point is I now know this information, which is very useful. Again, only the top 10 are shown here, but you should be able to customize that in the future. Then another very useful one is this one over here, which is the most common file extensions. So this may show you useful information like you've got 50 terabytes of JPEGs on your estate, or you've got a whole bunch of MPEG files. So somebody's storing a whole bunch of movies somewhere and things like that. So in our case, we can see we've got JavaScript files, bin files, DLLs, and so forth. So this is typical dev environment, but you may get some useful insight from this kind of information as well. Right, Then there's some interesting graphical cards that I want to show you. So this one here is the data growth. And this is a graphical representation of this information on the left here. And so over time, we can see what is our data growth. Typically, you'll see this increase here. We must have done a big cleanup. But we can see that the data is growing, and not just what is the total amount of data, but how much of that data is protected, which is the stuff in blue, and then how much is not protected. So again, a very useful card, and great to see that growing over time. And then the other one is just looking for it. It's the file count one, which is very similar, in fact. So it's the same information, but just showing the amount of files. Right. So these are just a pick of some of the cards that we're adding. We're almost adding cards on almost like a weekly basis. So so when you go to your collection, of course, all these cards will be about the collection and the subgroups that you're currently on. So if you go to the parent, you're going to see all the information of the whole storage platform. And then as you drill down into particular groups, these cards will adjust so that it shows you only the relevant information for those groups. So just two other small things I want to show you is this information down here. You can save that to a report. Now there's a HTML report that comes up when you open this report, but if you do a shift click on the report, you now have the option to save a CSV file, and that can be quite useful. So that's just for the more technical guys out there, a nice tip that you can do a shift click on the report to get a CSV. Then just something else to keep in mind that we've added is we now persist the data in terms of all the settings that you've made for your particular view. So my account is currently viewing the data growth and the file growth graphs. And if I log out here and I go to a completely different machine, or I go on my mobile device and I log in again, I'm going to see exactly the same stuff because we persist those settings regardless of the device that you're on. It's stored on the storage platform with your account. Right, and the last thing I want to show you on this control center is the ability to add a group. So you'll see at the top here, we've got this test button. And when you click on that, you now have the ability to add a group. So right now, these are the groups that I've got, and I will show this to you on the on my storage platform, which I'm not connected to. So I'm just going to go like this, dev sp. Right. And logging in. So here you see two-factor authentication in action. So you'll see that I have to log in. There's my verification request that I'm going to tap on, and I'm going to approve. There we go. And now I should be signed in. There we go. Right, so in the storage platform, I'm just going to browse quickly to the Redstor group. Maybe I won't, because my storage platform has just disappeared. But you have to take my word for it that in the Redstor group, you're going to see these accounts. And as soon as I click on this plus button here, and I go add group, then I can now add a new group, which I will call new group. And as soon as I click on that, you will see I now have this new group. As soon as I go into that group, obviously I'm not going to have any data, which is what I would expect. And now I can go in this group, I can click on this little plus sign again. And now instead of adding a group, I can now basically add accounts to this group. And the way that we do this is this fires up the mass deployment capability, where you can specify whether it's a Windows machine or a Linux Windows machines or Linux machines that you want to add. And then you can then run this script on either the Windows or the Linux machines, depending on what you want to add. As soon as you do that, an account will automatically be created in this group, and that will start to populate. This is extremely useful if you want to do just insight. You just want to scan all the accounts. then typically what you will do is you will create a group, you will do a mass deployment, get it out on all the machines using Active Directory, and then start to get the data. And then once you have the data, then you can now start to take action on it and see, okay, what do I need to protect? Where's all my files? Do I have stale data? And things like that. Right, so that's enough for the control center. And I'm going to end off just by reminding you, for those that didn't make it, we had our Office 365 launched just a week or so ago. And all the information regarding that, you can again find in your trusted support portal by doing a search for cloud to cloud. And as soon as you get to that article, you'll get a quick introduction. You'll get all the URLs that you need to go to do cloud to cloud. So cloud to cloud, if you're not familiar with it, that's the ability to back up Office 365 data, specifically OneDrive, SharePoint, and email. And all three of those are up and running. And if you need to know more about that, you can come to this article. Just do a search for cloud to cloud. It's going to show you how to do OneDrive backups. It's going to have there's a video in there. If you go to the specific article, there's your video. There's a whole bunch of screenshots with descriptions. So it'll take you step by step through everything that you need to know regarding OneDrive. There you've got mail, and here at the bottom you've got SharePoint. So please take a look at that, and if you need some help with that or some assistance, please ask the support staff at Redstor, who will be delightful to help you. Right, I think that's enough for today. So we're gonna move over to the questions and answer section now. And at the moment, there's the first question is, will there be trend lines in the storage usage to show customers when their servers will run out of space if they don't enable archiving? There could be anything. So it's not a yes/no answer. The answer is we could definitely do that. So what I would suggest you do, and I find this very often, is that people often ask, will the software do this? Almost sort of expecting that surely it must do that, and it's either like it will do it or it won't do it. So the software, the question I would rather ask you is, would you like the software to do this or that? Or even further, what would you like the software to do? And the more specifically you can be with your feedback, the better we will know exactly what it is that you want. And if you can explain it with regards to, well, this is why I would like to see that, because, in this situation, this is the kind of information that I would need, which will help me to make a particular decision. So yes, please give us your feedback. What we're going to do after this webinar is we're going to send the recording of this demo, and we will also send you all the questions and answers, and then you can respond on that by giving us feedback, and these will be that'll be a great place for you to give feedback. There's a question about incremental restores for full system recovery. We will have to get back to you on that in the questions and in the email, the questions and answers email. So I'm not quite sure, so let me get back to you on that. Right. It looks like we've reached the end of our questions. Not too many questions today. So from my side, thank you very much. I do apologize that you had to wait for 2-3 minutes. I was frantically in Task Manager killing the Teams application, which was eating up all my computer's memory. So fortunately, I got the memory back and managed to fire up the application. So apologies for that, but thank you so much for joining. Keep an eye out for the mail, and we would chat again in about 2 months' time for the next webinar. Thank you so much, and goodbye.